Ever wonder what people in their 70s wish they knew in their 60s? You might be surprised. Many say their 60s were the absolute best. If you're in your 60s now, you might think 70 isn't that different. But the reality can be quite eye-opening. We explore why so many regret not preparing and enjoying their 60s more. From changes in health and finances to shifting relationships, the 60s offer a unique window of opportunity. Don't wait until it's too late. Discover the insights that could help you make the most of your current decade. Hey everyone, do you know what people in their 70s often say the most? It's their 60s were the best. Now, people in their 60s might think, what's going to be so different when I turn 70? But in reality, many regret not preparing for things and not enjoying things enough back then. The difference between your 60s and 70s is bigger than you might think. Your body is different, your finances can be different, and your relationships can change too. When you reach your 70s, there are many things you want to do, but can't anymore. Your health, financial strength, and social standing gradually shift. However, people in their 60s often don't feel these changes significantly. That's why only when they reach their 70s do they regret not having prepared more and lived more fully during their 60s. So, today I want to talk about the reality of your 60s that becomes most missed when you turn 70. And if you're currently in your 60s, I'll also share how you can prepare for the future without regret. If you're watching this and you're in your 60s, watching until the end will definitely be a big help. If you're already in your 70s, there are still things you can do right now to live a happier life. So let's start with the first point. In your 60s, there's often a feeling that even if you go to the hospital, things can be fixed. If your knees hurt, you think taking medicine will help. And if your back hurts, an injection will solve it. But when you turn 70, it's not about treatment anymore. It's about management. Even with treatment, things don't completely heal, and you end up living with the condition. In your 60s, you could push yourself a little, but in your 70s, overdoing it leads to immediate problems. That's why many people in their 70s regret not exercising more and taking better care of their health in their 60s. So, today I want to talk about the realities of being in your 60s that you'll miss the most when you turn 70. And if you're currently in your 60s, I'll also tell you how to prepare for it without regrets. If you're watching this and you're in your 60s, watching until the end will definitely be a big help. If you're already in your 70s, there are still things you can do right now to live a happier life. So shall we start with the first point? In your 60s, there's often a feeling that even if you go to the hospital, things can be fixed. If your knees hurt, you think taking medicine will help. And if your back hurts, getting a shot will solve it. However, once you turn 70, it's not about treatment anymore, but about management. Even if you receive treatment, you don't fully recover, you just live with the condition. In your 60s, you could push yourself a little, but in your 70s, overdoing it leads to immediate problems. That's why many people in their 70s regret not exercising more and taking better care of their health in their 60s. Especially muscle and joint health are hard to regain once they weaken. In your 60s, a little effort can maintain your strength, but in your 70s, recovery is slower even with exercise. Therefore, you need to make exercise a habit starting in your 60s. You need to consistently do things like walking, light strength, training, and stretching. The reality of being in your 70s is that your body stiffens quickly, even if you skip exercise for just one day. If you neglect your health in your 60s, you'll end up going to the hospital more often in your 70s. Hospital bills become a burden, and if going to the hospital becomes a daily routine, your quality of life decreases. So, if you're in your 60s, make exercise a part of your life starting now. Next, let's talk about the economic differences. You might remember times in your 60s when you caught a cold and recovered quickly after resting for a few days. But in your 70s, even the same cold can linger for nearly a month. Even when you go to the hospital, medicine takes longer to work and recovery takes more time. It's not just that. Even small wounds don't heal quickly, and the possibility of infection increases. You get tired easily, even with a little exertion, and you don't recover as quickly as before. Especially if there's a fracture or a fall, recovery becomes even more difficult. That's why it's important to do fall prevention exercises starting in your 60s. You need to do exercises that improve your balance and strengthen your lower body in advance. You also need to thoroughly manage your diet to maintain your immunity. In your 60s, you could eat anything without much trouble, but in your 70s, your body becomes sensitive even to a single food item. You might have indigestion or get sick easily if you eat something that doesn't agree with you. Things you thought were okay in your 60s become a burden on your body in your 70s. So starting in your 60s, you need to establish healthy eating habits. Now let's talk about the economic differences. In your 60s, there are still some work opportunities available. Even if you retire from your main job, you can often find new employment. If you're healthy, you might be able to work part-time or start a small business. However, once you turn 70, work opportunities decrease drastically. Employers tend to be hesitant to hire older individuals. As a result, by your 70s, you often find yourself in complete retirement financially. Ultimately, you end up living off the money you saved in your 60s. However, in your 60s, you might still feel like you have plenty of time and tend to spend money. When you receive your severance pay, you might travel or help your children. But once you turn 70, you realize that your money is dwindling faster than expected. There are more fixed expenses than you think, including medical bills, living expenses, and various utility costs. And with no new income coming in, you become increasingly anxious. In your 60s, you might think you can just cut back later, but by your 70s, you often regret not saving more, feeling like it's too late. Therefore, starting in your 60s, you need to prepare ways to have a steady income after retirement. In your 60s, you might not have major financial worries due to severance pay, pensions, and savings. However, in your 70s, your income decreases while your expenses are higher than you anticipate. The biggest expense is medical care. As you age, you go to the hospital more often, and the cost of medication becomes a burden. And there might be unexpected surgeries or treatments needed. In addition to medical expenses, living costs continue. Basic living expenses like electricity bills, gas bills, and maintenance fees are deducted regularly each month. As prices continue to rise and you have no income, the burden grows heavier. That's why many people in their 70s regret not saving more money in their 60s. In your 60s, you can travel with friends and enjoy spending, but in your 70s, you worry every time you spend money. Therefore, it's important to create income streams starting in your 60s. It's good to find even small jobs that you can continue doing into your 70s. Rather than relying solely on your pension, you should consider rental income, remote work, or generating income from your hobbies. Having money makes your retirement comfortable, but lacking it significantly lowers your quality of life. In your 70s, the difference in life between those with sufficient funds and those without becomes stark. If you have enough money, you can eat well for your health and receive necessary medical treatments. You can travel and pursue your hobbies, increasing your life satisfaction. But if you lack money, even maintaining basic living becomes a struggle. You might postpone going to the hospital because you're worried about the cost. You have to live frugally, refraining from buying things you want. You might even have to depend on your children. If your children are not financially well off, you might feel even more sorry. Without money, your social activities inevitably decrease, and you spend more time at home. Financial security brings peace of mind and allows you to enjoy your later years more. That's why it's crucial to prepare adequately for retirement expenses. Starting in your 60s, you need to find ways to secure at least your basic living expenses and additional income after retirement. Having money gives you more choices and allows you to live a happier life. Since it's difficult to start working again in your 70s, you need to prepare thoroughly in your 60s. Next, let's explore the changes in social relationships. In your 60s, even after retirement, you often meet friends in alumni gatherings or active. You might go hiking with neighborhood friends or spend time doing hobbies together. However, as you enter your 70s, the number of people you meet gradually decreases. This is because your friend's health also deteriorates and their activities diminish. When people around you become ill or pass away, gatherings naturally become less frequent. Also, in your 70s, getting around is not as easy as it used to be. If walking becomes uncomfortable or you can no longer drive, opportunities to meet others decrease further.
In your 60s, you might think you can meet up anytime. But in your 70s, there are many cases where you can't gather even if you want to. Therefore, it's necessary to make an effort to maintain good relationships. Starting in your 60s, you need to stay in touch regularly and also practice spending time alone. It's important to develop hobbies that you can enjoy by yourself. You should also pay more attention to your relationships with your children and family, because in your 70s, you will inevitably spend more time alone. Next, let's explore ways to reduce loneliness. In your 60s, even friends you contacted frequently may become less communicative in your 70s. This is because their health may be declining and they spend more time at home. Often, when you do reach out, you might hear that they haven't been feeling well. You may find yourself feeling lonely more often. Therefore, it's important to build new relationships starting in your 60s. You should consistently engage in social activities such as clubs, hobby groups, and volunteering. It's necessary to interact with a variety of people, not just one or two friends. Especially as you age, it's good to connect with younger generations as well. Spend time with your grandchildren or meet people through community activities. You need to consciously make an effort to prevent relationships from becoming disconnected. Also, maintaining good relationships with your family is important. You should maintain a healthy distance from your children to avoid becoming too dependent and burdening them. If contact with friends decreases, creating new connections is a good way to cope. Because isolation can increase feelings of depression, you need to prepare for this in advance. Next, let's explore ways to be respected even in old age. In your 60s, even after retirement, it's an age where you still have a social role. Even if you're not working, there are many opportunities to engage in social activities. You can connect with society through local gatherings, hobbies, and volunteer work. Since those in their 60s are still classified as young seniors, the way people treat them is different. Many also find re-employment or start small businesses after retirement. You still have the physical strength to be active freely. Children also expect their parents to be healthy and active. You can play a role in looking after grandchildren or leading family gatherings. However, the situation gradually changes in your 70s. You start to be perceived socially as a retired elder. As you completely step away from economic activity, people around you might not seek you out as much as before. Your role within the family may also gradually decrease. You might increasingly feel like you don't belong anywhere. That's why it's important to create your own role starting in your 60s. Next, let's see how social perceptions change as you enter your 70s. When you turn 70, people's attitudes towards you gradually shift. You start hearing phrases like, "Sir, madame, please sit here," more often in restaurants or on public transportation. While you're initially grateful, you increasingly realize that you're getting older. Your children also become more concerned about protecting you. However, you yourself might still feel young and capable of doing things on your own. Yet, people around you say things like, "Don't overdo it," or "You should rest now," more frequently. As these changes accumulate, you might experience a decline in self-confidence. You might worry that you're no longer needed in society. However, the important thing is not to lose your own sense of worth. Regardless of what others say, you need to find things you can do and continue to challenge yourself. You can connect with society by starting to learn something new or by volunteering. It's crucial to believe, "I can still do this." Rather than worrying about how others see you, you should think about how you want to live your life. Even in your 70s, it's important to find your own role and live confidently. Next, let's look at how much your options decrease when you turn 70. Your 60s are an age when you can still learn and start new things. After retirement, you can take up a hobby or learn a new skill. If you're in good health, you can travel or actively participate in social activities. In your 60s, you often think, "Should I try something new now?" However, these challenges become increasingly difficult in your 70s. Starting to learn something new can feel burdensome, and your memory might not be as sharp as it used to be. As your physical strength declines, your range of activities also gradually narrows. Therefore, if there's something you want to do in your 60s, you shouldn't postpone it. You should start right away. If you think you'll do it later, there's a high chance you won't be able to. Especially in your 70s, learning new technologies can feel more difficult. It's important to become familiar with technologies, like smartphones and computers in your 60s. Knowing how to use technology will give you more opportunities to connect with society. In your 70s, there's a stronger tendency to stick to familiar things, rather than taking on new challenges. However, it's important to maintain a mindset of continuous learning and growth, even as you age. Next, let's explore how what you learn in your 60s determines your life in your 70s. Looking at people who have reached their 70s, what they did in their 60s has a significant impact. Those who exercised consistently in their 60s often maintain their health in their 70s. Conversely, those who were inactive in their 60s are more likely to have weak joints and muscles in their 70s. The same goes for finances. The financial comfort you have in your 70s depends on the preparations you made in your 60s. People who built new relationships in their 60s are less lonely in their 70s. However, those who thought, "I'm comfortable being alone," in their 60s tend to feel more lonely in their 70s. What you learn in your 60s becomes an asset that you can utilize in your 70s. If you learned new skills, you can still use them as you age. Learning something new for the first time in your 70s requires more effort. But if you learn in advance in your 60s, you can have a more comfortable retirement. Your 60s are the last opportunity to prepare for your old age. Therefore, instead of thinking, "It's time to rest now," in your 60s, you should think, "This is my last chance." What you learn, prepare, and experience in your 60s determines the quality of your life after your 70s. Next, let's summarize what you can do now for a retirement without regrets. In your 60s, it's easy to think that you can just go to the hospital if you get sick. However, once you turn 70, management becomes more important than treatment. Recovery from even minor illnesses is slower, and once you lose your health, it's not easy to get it back. Therefore, it's essential to develop a habit of regular exercise, starting in your 60s. You should aim for at least 30 minutes of walking, light strength, training and flexibility exercises daily. Maintaining muscle mass is crucial to prevent falls and keep your back and joints strong as you age. You also need to adjust your eating habits in advance. In your 70s, your stomach is likely to weaken, and your digestive abilities may decline. From now on, you should reduce salty and greasy foods and adopt a diet centered around natural foods. In particular, you need to consume enough protein to prevent muscle loss. In your 60s, you should get thorough health checkups and pay close attention to even small changes in your body. Neglecting something by thinking, "It'll be all right," can lead to serious illnesses in your 70s. Health is not something you take care of later. you need to manage it thoroughly from now on. The health habits you establish in your 60s will determine your life after your 70s. Next, let's talk about financial preparation. In your 60s, you might still be able to work, and with severance pay or pensions coming in, you might not have major financial worries. However, once you turn 70, you'll no longer have income, and you'll realize that your money is depleting faster than expected. As prices rise and you have no income, your living situation will become tighter. Therefore, starting in your 60s, you need to prepare ways to have a continuous income even after retirement. The best way is to create additional income streams besides your pension. Rental income, remote work, and side businesses. Utilizing your hobbies can greatly contribute to your financial stability in old age. Even if you are financially comfortable in your 60s, the situation can change in your 70s. Even if you have children, relying on them financially can be a burden for both parties. Therefore, you need to plan your retirement expenses in advance. Budget and develop a habit of saving. When you receive your severance pay, don't spend it all at once. You need to establish a long-term plan. If you study financial management or investment in your 60s, you'll be able to manage your money wisely in your later years. If you lack money, you'll experience stress due to medical and living expenses. Financial security brings peace of mind and allows you to live a happy retirement doing the things you want. If you're currently in your 60s, ask yourself, will I be financially comfortable even when I turn 70? Next, let's explore how to maintain social relationships. In your 60s, you often have many friends and active interactions with family. However, as you enter your 70s, contact gradually decreases and social activities tend to diminish. You might feel lonely as friends' health deteriorates, and you lose touch with them one by one. Therefore, it's necessary to make an effort to maintain good relationships, starting in your 60s. You should contact and meet friends often while you still can. However, it's also important to appropriately organize and streamline unnecessary relationships. You should distance yourself from relationships that cause you stress and associate with positive people. Since it becomes more difficult to build new relationships as you age, you need to prepare in advance. It's important to continue social activities through clubs, volunteering, and hobby groups. While it's good to look after grandchildren or spend time with family, you also need to take care of your own life. Since you're likely to have more time alone, it's a good idea to create hobbies that you can enjoy by yourself. Maintaining good relationships can reduce loneliness and protect your mental health. People who manage their relationships well in their 60s can maintain a vibrant life even in their 70s. Relationships are an important factor that determines the quality of life, even in old age. Now, let's summarize today's content. In today's video, we talked about why you'll envy your 60s the most when you reach your 70s. Everything changes: health, financial resources, social relationships, changes in roles, and the range of choices available. In your 60s, you might think you're still okay, but if you don't prepare, you might regret it in your 70s. So, if you're currently in your 60s, you need to thoroughly manage your health and make financial preparations. It's important to maintain social connections and prepare for a life you can enjoy. Even when you're alone, your 60s are the last chance to prepare for your old age. If you put things off, thinking you'll do them later, that opportunity might never come. Start practicing even small things from today: healthy eating habits, consistent exercise, financial management, relationships, and participating in social activities. If you practice these 5 things, you'll have fewer regrets when you turn 70. How are you preparing for your old age right now? If you have any questions, please leave a comment. Sharing our experiences can help many more people. For a happy retirement without regrets, let's prepare together from now on.